Welcome to another edition of our 2021 Ticats season preview podcast powered by TELUS. I'm the Ticats digital host, Louie B, and I wanted to personally thank you for pressing play wherever you get your podcasts. All this week leading up to camp, we will be focusing on a different position group, and today's episode is going to focus on the receivers. With just a few changes made to the roster, including the return of the MOP, Brandon Banks, in addition to the returning Bralon Addison, Jalen Addison, and new additions like DeVere Posey, the Cats' receivers will once again be a dangerous weapon for Tommy Condell and the offense. To discuss this position, we've lined up a bunch of great guests for you today, starting with wide receivers coach Jarryd Baines. The aforementioned Bralon Addison will be by. And then a couple of the best to ever play the position. Canadian Football Hall of Famer, now a CFL on TSN analyst, Milt Stegall will join us. And then we'll wrap up the conversation with an all-time Tiger Cats great, Rocky DiPietro. So we've got a great show for you, so let's get right into it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to enjoy. And if we're talking about the receivers, we might as well talk to the wide receivers coach, and that is Jarryd Baines, and there he is. Jarryd, first of all, congratulations, because you were hired as the receivers coach back in February of 2020. Of course, we know what happened after that. So what's the excitement like for you going into camp as the receivers coach this season?
It's been a long wait. First of all. I have been here now with the Ticats, I guess my sixth season coming up. So it's been a lot of starting from an offensive assistant level to assistant receivers coach to now the receivers coach. It's been a long time coming, but I'm just so excited and so lucky to have learned from some tremendous people. And, Ken Austin, June Jones, Corey Grant, the list of coaches goes on in terms of who was here before and who bestowed their knowledge upon me. So I'm just excited to be able to pass on a sliver of the knowledge that I've gained from these guys. So it is a ton of excitement. And I know that, as I was mentioning earlier, it's only 10 days out. So it's really coming to a head right now, and I can barely contain myself.
I was about to say, how different is it for you as the actual receivers coach versus the assistant receivers coach or offensive quality control coach? I mean, for you, it's got to be this has got to be pretty special, but also different, challenging. What's it like?
To be honest, it's going to be tough this might be a question better fit for 6 months from now after the season. But, for me, it's going to be what's really going to change for me is probably just meeting structure and within the confines of the meeting, how much I'm speaking, how much of the presentations I'm doing. It was always something I would do a little bit, but now more responsibility that wise will come on my plate, which is awesome. But for now, it's really been status quo in terms of a lot of things I was doing. It's just really when the players get here, which we haven't been able to see in the last year and a half, when the players get here, that's when it'll start to change for me. So I'd assume it's just going to be more installment, more meeting time, more drill work. So it'll be good that way, but I really have yet to kind of dive into the full receivers coach role yet.
Let's talk about the receivers you will be coaching, because really a murderer's row of talent. And, we know Brandon Banks, we know Bralon Addison, DeVere Posey. I mean, the idea that you get to coach these guys, that you get to support them, that you get to work with Coach Tommy and Coach O to draw up plays for them. What's that like for you?
Makes it pretty easy, and makes you think anyone could do it, right? You can. No, it's I've been blessed. I've been blessed with those guys, and Bralon, came in at the end of 2018 or about halfway through the season in 2018, and really kind of exploded on the scene towards the end of that season. Speedy's been a mainstay since I've been here. So he's jokingly, he's the veteran of the room, where I think he's got a couple of years on me, even age wise, but it is a blessing. It is working with those guys. It's so awesome because they're so football smart. When I talk about install and the installment of plays and watching film, it's a lot of times with these guys, it's second nature. They've done variations of the things we're trying to install. They've been a part of our offense before, so they can explain things in their own ways at times. They're great because they're able to not only take the information that I give them and apply it to the field, but they're also able to help out others. And they do a great job of, being accountable for the success of the guys underneath them. So you'll see those guys play a huge role in some of the younger guys and taking them under their wing a bit, without an ego and being able to correct a rep from a B group guy or a C group guy and to help him along the way. So it just makes my job so much easier to have guys like that, and Speedy being a veteran, and Braylon's still relatively young, but he's, kind of a veteran in our room. But to have that veteran presence is awesome for me as a young coach stepping into this new receivers coach role, because I can rely on them to kind of validate the things that I'm saying and to help me along the way and to, grow our receivers with me. So it's special. It's fun.
One of the things that might have been overlooked in the 2019 season, because it was such a whirlwind, it was such a dominant season, but the emergence of Jalen Addison, the Ticats nominee for Rookie of the Year. What did you see in him in 2019, and what are you hoping to see from him here in 2021 as he tries to raise his game to the next level?
Yeah, the first exposures to Jalen Addison were at a Buffalo mini camp we had, and I just remember him lighting it on fire, and everyone kind of taking a step back, and everyone at the end of it saying, we didn't expect to say this, but this guy's got to make our team. He's got to play. He's got to be on our team. So he stood out initially. My first exposure to him was at a Buffalo mini camp before training camp. And then, during training camp, Ackland's competitiveness truly came out. He is a ultimate competitor, and he, was one of the few, and we laugh in the receiver room, and all the best to Delvin Breaux in his retirement. But
that's a good classic Jalen story, but go ahead. Yeah.
All the best to Delvin in retirement, but he just made our training camp a whole lot easier, especially when doing press release drills. And Ackland, and I told him this is offseason, he cut his teeth repping and releasing against Delvin Breaux, which has made many of people quit. It has gotten many of people cut, but Ackland, competitive as anything. He stood out that way. Tremendous ability to catch the ball, so great catch radius, and he'll be the first to tell you about it. But he can hop. He is maybe the biggest vertical on our team, on our receiving core. But he can jump, and he was jumping over guys in last year's training camp. And that was my first exposure to him. And, we just saw him, initially start out not on the roster, but then slowly work his way in, slowly trickle his way in. And he was just a jack of all trades for us last year. And to have that from a young receiver is rare. The ability for him to intake information and to be able to play multiple positions for us was special for us last year, and really set him apart and allowed him to get playing time early because his adjustability and his ability to learn multiple positions.
Do you think the Ticats have kind of set the blueprint on, you don't need those big 6'3" receivers to go up and get the ball? Like, I mean, I think of obviously Speedy B, but Braylon's not a tall guy. Jalen's not that tall. Luke Tasker was never the tallest, but just toughness, right? And what's the blueprint on you don't need to be 6'4" to be the best receiver on the field. Is there something? Am I trying to connect too many dots here between the Ticats and kind of the relative height of the receiving staff you got with you?
I mean, we'll take height if we got them. If they can play, we got a couple. Be on the lookout. We got a couple of big boys in training camp this year competing. So it'll actually be one of our bigger rosters going into training camp this year, just looking at pure size. But I would agree with you. I think when it comes down to the success of the mainstays of the Ticats receiving core throughout the last 5, 6, 7 years, it definitely hasn't been the bigger guys. For me and for my exposure with our offensive success, it has a lot to do with route feel, speed of your break, being able to break off of defenders' leverages. Being able to high point and being able to jump is great, and it is always beneficial, specifically more towards the red zone and, in fade situations. So there is definitely benefits to being big, but I think just the size of the CFL field really unlocks the speed and really unlocks the savviness of receivers, maybe a little more than a tight NFL field does, where so much is accuracy and everything has to be right on the money, where you do have a little leeway. There is so much room to run in the CFL. I think just because of that, and because a lot of times it's, you're still getting tremendous accuracy from our quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but there's just a little leeway. And a great example being a deep out route to the field side. If you're on the left hash and you're throwing to the right and you're throwing a deep out route, that's a 55 yard, 60 yard throw if you're throwing it past 20 yards. there's so much room for guys to go get it. There's so much room for guys to make up for potential lack of size with, again, just understanding of attacking the football, savviness out of breaks, speed cutting, man cutting. It's, I'd say that has been our success in just truly being a savvy group of receivers and being fundamentally sound as opposed to just being born with some gifts of height, which a lot of us unfortunately haven't been, including myself.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. You mentioned some of the height that you're bringing in. There are some names that are going to catch some people, that are going to draw people's attention. Tyler Ternowski, I know we're excited to see him in camp after drafting him a couple of years ago. But who else do you kind of have your eye on going into camp to make an impact or to fight for a roster spot on this team?
Yeah, there's a litany. There's a list. There's a long Santa Claus list there.
I was on the roster page before we did this chat, and I was like, okay, where does the wide receiver stop?
Yeah, there's a lot
of names coming to camp, though.
No, credit to our guys in the personnel, Rich, Matt Houston, Spencer Bohm, Jarrell Meng, and Berkey. They've done a great job with guys this year. You know, guys off the top of my head that I know are going to come in and compete because we've got a lot of dogs coming in. You know, John Duhart, Stephen Dunbar, Marcus Green, Poppy White, you know, Nahari Crawford, Cam Phillips, who was in the XFL with June Jones. You know, I'm definitely missing. So, you know, Jake Burt, I guess I don't know if he's qualified. Does he count? Does he count for us?
I was just about to say, I mean, Jake Burt is one of those guys, like, I could talk about him in my running back show. I could talk about him. Like, I really can talk about him anywhere, right? Like, because you have to be excited about, and you and Tommy and Coach O, and, like, the idea of what you could do with a Jake Burt is you got to be excited, you know, mad genius trying to make up plays here.
Yeah, I think, you know, we hadn't seen a fullback in the realm of, and we love Nikola Kalinic, and Nikola Kalinic for us last year was a huge part of our offense as well as our special teams as well as our team morale because he is beloved in our locker room and what he brings is awesome. So he's going to be, you know, add in Jake Burke and it's great, but what Nikola brings to us and the physicality was special last year. And I truly believe he's going to grow into be one of the best fullbacks in this league. And then throw in Jake Burt too, with his ability to stretch the field, you know, his, you know, experience in pro style offenses at Boston College and at New England is going to be huge for us. I've had a couple chances to talk to him. He's sharper than anything. So he might be coaching the room by the end of the year, just based on my conversations with him. But it's going to be special. It's going to be that 1-2 punch at that tight end, fullback position, however you want to call it. We're definitely going to use them in different ways than we saw last year, but it's going to be a blessing for our offensive play caller, Tommy Condell, as he goes to make the game plans, because he's going to have, you know, the two-headed monster a little bit with the two tight ends we got.
I was about to say two tight ends, the four receivers that you could throw the ball to, and then, yeah, I know I'm excited, Coach. I know you're excited as well. I appreciate you doing this. It's great to catch up, and we'll see you in a couple of days here at Tim Hortons Field.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, we're talking receivers, and who better to speak to than Bralon Addison. He's back with the black and gold after a short stint in the NFL. Bralon, it is great to see you. Just a few short days to training camp. What are you feeling? Are you nervous, pumped, excited? What are you feeling right now?
Oh, man, I'm definitely excited. It's been almost 2 years since I stepped on the field, so I'm just happy. I'm excited to get back going, get with the guys, get with the coaches, see everybody, even the new faces, man. I'm just excited. Like I said, it's been almost two years since, you know, most of us have stepped on the field. So it's just a blessing to be able to even have an opportunity to get back out there. So I'm excited.
We're focusing on the receivers during this episode of the podcast. So, I mean, obviously, you got Speedy B, who's coming off an MOP year. You got yourself, 1,000-yard receiver. You got DeVere Posey. I mean, like, when you guys look at the team on paper, you have to be pretty excited about the opportunities that you guys could have here this season.
Definitely. I think, you know, the guys we have in the locker room on the offensive side of the ball, first off, is going to be pretty exciting, especially with the offensive minds we have in the front office. Well, not the front office, but the coaching staff. You know, Tommy and all the guys are going to put their brains together and use all the weapons we have. To add a guy like Depot, who's a veteran, who's played in a lot of big games, and he's won one of the games that we're trying to win. So, just to add a guy like him, and then the other guys that we've added, plus the guys we already had in 2019, I'm pretty excited, man. I think the fact that when you get a team that's been to the tip of the mountain peak, and then you add guys that are even more competitive and they've been there, and you add that together, it's always exciting. I think it brings out the best in everybody. So I'm excited to get going. I'm excited to share the field with those guys.
The one thing that I've kind of been focusing on is just the practices between the two teams, like between the offense and the defense. I mean, because you really do, when you're on offense and you're at practice, you really are going up against the best in the league on defense. How does that push you? How does that help you in game action when in practice, you're trying to, outrun Frankie Williams down the line or Jamal Roll or something like that, Tunde? Like, how does that help you in the game action?
I think it makes it easier. You hear a lot of people say the all-time great statement. You don't rise to the occasion. You sink to the level of your training. So when you get to go against guys like like you mentioned Roll, Frankie, Tunde, CB, Simone, Dylan Wynn, Jaguar Davis. Like when you get to go against those guys every day, and then the weekend comes, it's like, okay, I just went against the best defense in the league for a whole week. Now it's game time to go against another defense. I just got to do what I did all week. So it's always a good thing to have competition. Like I said in the locker room, when you got competition, it just brings out the best in everybody.
And I know that that defense loves trying to steal the ball away from you at practices. I know they love to celebrate, and so do you. But let's talk about training camp, because what do you remember about your first training camp in the CFL, and how have you kind of changed your approach to getting ready for a season throughout your career?
I think my first training camp in the CFL was a little bit of a shocker. I was in Toronto, and most training camps that I've been in, like college and pro, before I came to the CFL, was you get all this time to like go out there and learn this and prove this, and it's so much time, you know what I mean? And then in the CFL training camp, it's like boom and it's over, and you're like, whoa, like training camp is done already, you know what I mean? So I think they always say you want to come in training camp ready. I think the CFL training camp is really the epitome of that, because it's not really much time for you to get to training camp and then get yourself ready for a season. Like, it's only 2 weeks of training camp and then the season's here. So I think that was the biggest adjustment for me. It's just adjusting to how fast the season actually comes once training camp's hit. But also, like I said, I love it so much because, quiet as kept, guys really don't enjoy training camp. You know what I mean? They want to compete against other teams. So it's good to have that 2 weeks of, banging heads, and then 2 weeks later we're playing against somebody else. So I think it's two ways to look at it, and I think it's pretty fun. I enjoy the 2 week training camp and being able to go against the guys for that quick span of time, and then getting on to really competing against somebody else.
Yeah. August 5th is a day that everybody in this city, a lot of people in this country, have circled on their calendar as the first game. Have you kind of visualized? Are you someone who visualizes? Do you picture? Have you woken up in the middle of the night thinking, Winnipeg, loud stadium, like, let's go win this game?
Yeah, man. Like I'm a big sports fan. So even when I was a kid, most of the time, the first game of every season is like the two teams that played in the championship last year. You know what I mean? It always kicks off the season like that, or that's always the prime time game of opening week. So for me to even be in one of those, like for the first time in my life, you know what I mean? It's exciting. Even though we came up short last year, just to know we were right there and the trophy was right there, to be able to come out this upcoming year and open the game against the team played again in the championship. I think it's going to be imperative for us to send a message and, kind of get going and let them know we're not going away. I know a lot of people around the league want to think 2019 was a fluke in many ways. So I think it's imperative for us to, just get right in training camp and be ready to go compete on August 5th.
Outside of getting out of quarantine and getting out of isolation, what are you most excited about come Saturday morning, 8:30 a.m., Tim Hortons Field? What are you going to be most excited about?
I think just seeing the guys, man. I think, like I said, it's been a minute since I've seen most of these guys. I live in Houston, Texas, and I think it's probably only one or two guys that live here. So, just the fact to be able to see the guys again, see all the faces that we haven't seen in almost 2 years, I think I'm excited. I was super excited when we signed Mike Fowler back. Just to have a guy like that in the locker room. I can't wait to see him. I know he's gonna be cracking jokes. And I know he's gonna have a ton of COVID jokes, so I'm ready for that. So I'm just really excited to see the guys, man, and be able to compete together again.
And December 12th, the Grey Cup is going to be played in Hamilton. How big of a motivation is that for this team, for you personally, the opportunity to win, to lift that trophy in front of your home fans in December? How big of a motivation is that?
It's huge. It's huge. I love to win. I know people see this as a bad thing, but I hate losing more than I love to win. So the fact that I've had a chance to compete at the championship level on a pro level is bittersweet because, like I said, we didn't win it, but you want to be playing for that trophy, and what better way than to have an opportunity to play for it at home this year in front of the Hamilton crowd. I know everybody's going to be thinking about that all season, but we just got to take it 1 week at a time. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a long, 14 weeks we're playing, 14 weeks. So we're going to have to try to keep focused and keep the goal at hand at the same time, be able to attack it week by week, and just know the end goal is December 12th, but we got to get through the other 14 or 16 before we can get there. So
Bralon, appreciate you doing this. I can't wait to see you on Saturday at the stadium, and I know you can't wait to be on the field. Thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Appreciate you having me.
And if we're talking about receivers, we should be talking to one of the greatest ever to play the game in the Canadian Football League. That's Milt Stegall. There he is. Milt, thank you so much for doing this. CFL on TSN analyst, Milt Stegall now. Thank you for doing this. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited that we have an upcoming season, so I'm just ready to go. My pleasure being on with you.
Thank you. And I want to get to the Ticats receiver in a second, but I want to talk about camp as a whole because you have a reputation. You had a reputation when you were a player. You have a reputation now of being in extremely good shape. And that is changed kind of over the years where, back in the day, guys came into camp, right, to get in shape.
Right, right.
How important is it to be in shape day one of camp?
It is very important. Not saying it wasn't competitive back then when you talk about those guys. They use camp to get in shape, but it's really competitive. And if you come into camp and you're not in shape, I don't care who you are, you're going to be exposed, as the younger kids say right now. So you have to be in tip-top shape. You can't wait until you get to camp to decide, okay, now I'm going to start pushing it. You have to push it months before. So once you get to camp, there are no surprises. Also, that helps prevent injuries. There are no, your body's not surprised. It's somewhat been through what you're going to take you through during camp. So being in shape is very important. And the guys who aren't in shape, they'll be exposed. And a lot of those guys won't be in the CFL this upcoming season.
Especially after the amount of layoff that we've had from football. Does it tell you more about the athlete, about the person, that if, after all this time off, after all this motivation to get back on the field, day one at camp, you're behind a step of some of the younger guys?
Well, I don't know everyone's situation. I'm sure there are some guys who couldn't work out as much as they would have liked to because they had to get jobs. They have bills, they have families. So unfortunately, they maybe could not have worked out as much as they could. But I'm hoping that they understand that if you're not in shape, it's going to be very difficult to make the team. So whatever you had to do to get yourself in shape, I know it took some sacrifice and maybe late nights or early evenings because you did have to work. Hopefully all those guys are in shape and ready to go and giving themselves the best chance they can to make their teams.
Now, our friend Davis Sanchez always loves to start some stuff on Twitter, and it's going to be a popular discussion heading into this season. The top duos when it comes to receivers. I'm in the Bralon Addison, Brandon Banks camp. Some people are in the Greg Elliott, Terrell Walker camp. Let's talk about the combo of Bralon Addison, Brandon Banks, and let's add in DeVere Posey. I mean, talk about this Ticats receiving group, a dangerous group with lots of different targets.
Yeah, they have some players there, and no one has mentioned Posey. We know what he's capable of, and he'll be a third option. That's crazy saying DeVere Posey is a third option, but you talk about the reigning MVP of the CFL, Brandon Banks, Mr. Excitement. He can do it all. And Addison, who, if not for Brandon Banks, would have put up even better numbers. So they have a very talented core there. And I think what even makes them even more special is you have top quarterbacks, not one, but two. So regardless who's at your quarterback position, you know they're going to get it done. So they have an exciting duo as long as they remain healthy, as long as everyone is back, because I'm hearing Speedy B may say he doesn't want to come back, or maybe that's just Speedy B being Speedy B. So we'll see. But, they have some players who can go out there and make some plays. And I would be excited to be a quarterback for the Hamilton Tiger Cats with those weapons.
Speaking of the quarterbacks, Jeremiah Masoli and Dane Evans, they're going to go to camp. They're going to compete, and they're going to compete for that starting job, but they're also going to support one another. How important is that to have that cohesiveness, to have that 1-2 punch, especially in the Canadian Football League, of two guys who are ready to go at a moment's notice?
It definitely makes life easier. I mean, of course, both of those guys want to start, but regardless, those guys have an attitude where regardless who's starting, I'm going to support that individual. And that makes life easier for whoever's the coach is, for those guys, for the players, because they have two leaders who are all about team. Of course, like I say, those guys, they want to start. You don't become a professional to be a backup, especially a quarterback. You want to start. But they're all for the team. And whatever it takes for the team to win, that's what they're going to do. And I think both of those guys understand that they're both going to play. There's no way who's ever starting, who's ever backing up is not going to play. They're going to play, and they're going to do whatever best for the team. And that's just great when you have two individuals like that, especially at your quarterback position.
This Ticats group, obviously we know what they did in 2019 during the regular season through the first game of the playoffs for them, but we know how the season ended. Having a chip on their shoulder, how big of a motivation is that heading into the season, especially in a year like this where, the Grey Cup is scheduled December 12th at Tim Hortons Field?
Well, you can't allow, and this is just my philosophy, you can't allow what happened in the past to control what's going to happen in the future, because I don't think it impacts you in a positive way. You have to move on. I mean, unfortunately, they did lose to my Bombers. Yes, they did. But they have so much there that they can build on. They can't allow what happened there to motivate them. Their motivation should be because they have the Grey Cup right there in their own backyard. That should be the biggest motivation of all, that you have an opportunity to win a Grey Cup that you haven't done in over 2 decades right there in your backyard with those great fans. So that should motivate them. They have enough talent to do it. I think a lot of people are going to pick them to win the Grey Cup for so many reasons. So the fact that they have all this talent, they're playing the Grey Cup right there in Hammertown, that should be all the motivation they need.
There weren't a lot of people who knew the name Jake Burt, probably, the week leading up to the draft. And there he was being the first overall pick, in the 2021 draft. What did you make of that pick? And where do you see him lining up on this roster, knowing the creativity of a Tommy Condell and an Orlando Steinauer? How do you feel like they're going to use a guy like him?
They're going to use him in multiple formations, I'm sure. We'll see him at fullback. We'll see him lined up as an H-back, I'm sure, in some short yardage situations. You'll see him at tight end because he's so versatile. You don't find too many individuals like a Burke who can go out there and do so much for your team. I mean, it's going to take him a second to get accustomed to the game, the speed and everything. But once he does, I think he's going to be a utility man that can do so much. You'll see him on special teams. So I know they're excited to have him. He was the first pick, so they're expecting a lot. They're not expecting just to come in and play special teams. They're expecting him to come in and contribute to that offense because they have so many other weapons, but they're looking for him to be another one of those weapons and contribute to them possibly winning the Grey Cup.
What are you most excited about for the start of the season? We're just, a few short days away from training camp, but what are you most looking forward to in 2021 here?
Well, just getting back, and I'm hoping that as analysts we could get to some of these games people don't realize, I mean, we love being in the studio, but when we're actually at the games and interacting with the fans and the players, there's nothing else like it. That's the way I relive my playing days when I'm able to get to those games. But I'm just excited for the season, just like everyone else. You know, a year away from not analyzing or not playing, it's tough. So hopefully we can get back to giving these fans something they love and something that they're so excited about, and that's playing some CFL football.
You mentioned your Bombers, of course, the team you spent your entire 14-year CFL career with. They are the defending champions. That's who the Ticats will see to kick off their season on August 5th. What do you like about that Bombers group? And Zach Collaros, can he kind of get back to the Zach Collaros we all knew that he was and the Zach Collaros we think he can be?
Well, as long as Zach is on the field, this team is going to be great. I mean, we know what he's capable of. That defense with Willie Jefferson and Adam Big Hill, they lost a couple of defensive backs, but I think they were able to replace them. And Andrew Harris, they can do it all. But the problem is, and this is the reason why Zach is not in Hammertown anymore, is he going to stay healthy? Because if he gets hurt, I mean, I think you're the backup. I'm not for sure because their backup quarterbacks really don't have much experience. So it's going to be difficult if he's not on the field. And I hate to bring this up, but from his past seasons, he just hadn't been able to stay on the field. But if he's healthy, I mean, this team is capable of going back to the Grey Cup and winning it again. But the problem is he going to be able to remain healthy? So that remains to be seen. Like you spoke of, that first game, Grey Cup rematch is going to be exciting. Hamilton, Winnipeg, and we're all looking forward to it.
Milt, I appreciate you doing this. It is great to get to the chance to talk to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me, man. Take care.
All right, from one all-time great to the next, my thanks to Milt Stegall for stopping by, but I'm very, very pleased. It's always great to see this, man, whether it's in line at Food Basics or Giant Tiger in Font Hill, or whether it's on your screen or in your earbuds. Rocky DiPietro, it's great to see you, Rocky. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you, Louis. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you, of course, you mentioned the sweater to the left of me here. Of course, that's a Mike Kerrigan jersey from back in the day, and maybe one he even wore at Brock University back in training camp days. What do you remember about training camp? Maybe that first training camp as a professional athlete.
Well, yeah, going back through the years, it was a long time ago. 1978 was my first training camp. It was actually the first year they had it in St. Catharines under the new ownership of Harold Ballard. And from what I can remember back then, going into camp and seeing a lot of big guys walking around, a lot of muscles, a lot of testosterone, and a lot of pain that came my way during the next 2 weeks.
I was talking to Grover. We had Grover on one of the episodes here this week, and Grover Covington, he went into, it was a mindset that you had to really go into it with the two-a-days, and you really had to go to compete. And I don't think much has changed in that aspect of it. So is that really when the competitive spirit starts to burn when it comes to the start of the season?
Oh, yeah. You know, and I remember, especially early on, we went through a few coaches. So, you know, when you get a new coach, he wants to set his standard. And so a lot of times you came in there and things started off with that first practice, you know, 9 o'clock, the first day, the first practice. You got into it real quick, and it didn't take you long, you know, before you got that feeling that you had been there for a month already, even though it may have been 1 or 2 days. So the days went very slow.
What did you learn? Did you try and pick something up each year? Like, did you try and learn something and then apply it to the next? Or do you think by training camp 10, you know, was it just kind of routine? I got to compete. I still got to win my job here.
Well, I think I always had that mindset, you know, that I wanted to earn my job. I think after, you know, a few years, I think most veterans know that they pretty well have a job. It's probably theirs to lose, but I always had that mindset. I think it motivated me. But, you know, you always learn. You're always gaining experience. And, you know, I was lucky enough to play 14 years, and I was gaining experience right till the end. You never learn enough, you know what I mean? And it's great to to have that under your belt and, you know, to go through that each year, even though I didn't like training camp. And I'm sure a lot of guys will tell you that they, you know, they may say they enjoyed it or whatever, but I'm sure that they hated it deep down.
I was just about to get into that because, you know, everybody's got some stories that they remember from camp. Is there one particular year? Is there one particular story that you seem to recall from your training camp days?
Well, I'm trying to think back. I mean, there were a number of times when some of the guys would pull the pranks, you know, have the police, you know, they worked it out with the local police. They had the police come a couple of times to arrest a few guys and stuff like that. And it was always nice to see, as I mentioned, my first year was when Jarryd Ballard bought the team. So it was always nice because there was one day in that 2 weeks where the Maple Leaf brass would all come for the day. And so you had a lot of big wigs walking around. And that was kind of neat to see. And Mr. Ballard and King Clancy himself were there. So that was always a great experience for us. But, you know, mostly it was a necessary evil and something you wanted to get over with real quick.
There is the aspect, though, when you talk to guys and we talk to championship teams, they'll tell you, you know, we really clicked at camp. It really started at training camp. That's where we became a family. Is it because you're almost forced to, because you're living with these guys, because you're eating with these guys, because you're training? Like, how do you go, like, from teammates to family as part of that training camp experience?
Yeah, well, I think that's, you know, definitely the start of things. Like, you're all of a sudden you're coming from your own, you know, your own world where you were working out either on your own or with a couple of guys, and all of a sudden you're with everybody, you know, almost 24 hours a day. And in our case, it was a full 2 weeks every day, no days off. So, you know, you got that, you're in that mindset right away. And of course, you got coaches pushing you, and, you know, you're motivating yourself, a lot of pressure on you. And, you know, I think that's where it starts. And, you know, and hopefully you get off to a good start when you get out of there.
You know, a lot of, you've won Grey Cups, you've lost Grey Cups though too. But and when we talk about, you know, the 2019 season for this Tiger Cats group, after having such a regular season, to have the result they did in Grey Cup, you know, when you ask them about it, they're not going to say it was a chip on their shoulder. But like you said, as someone who has lost a Grey Cup and then come back the next year and won, how much of a motivating factor is it to be at that game and lose and want to get back and win?
Well, it's definitely a motivating factor, but, you know, like every year is a new year. It's a new beginning. There's always changes. There's always guys coming in, guys leaving. So, you know, it's almost like starting back from square one. So, you know, in the back of your mind, though, you've got that, you know, in your head, what it took to get there, and, you know, how it didn't work out in your favor. So that's the motivating factor that stays with you. But the CFL is a long season, so, you know, most guys are geared up for each game, and then, you know, it's a progression from game to game to game, and then through the playoffs. So it's certainly a process.
You mentioned the playoffs. Of course, the Grey Cup will be played December 12th at Tim Hortons Field. As someone who you know, played his entire career in Hamilton, as someone who's decided to, you know, call close to Hamilton home, how excited are you to be able to get to showcase this city to the rest of Canada, you know, come Grey Cup week in December?
Yeah, I think it's great for Hamilton. You know, I'm excited that there's a season, even though it is shortened, and the Grey Cup is late, and, you know, we're hoping that the weather holds out. But I think it's great and exciting for Hamilton. And I know Mr. Young wants to put on a good show. And this is his chance to, you know, showcase his new stadium, even though it's been around for a few years, but to showcase the stadium and the fans and, you know, just the whole Ticat organization. And it's going to be good to see a lot of people, you know, as we get through the different activities of Grey Cup week. I'll be seeing a lot of people that I played with, of course, but then a lot of the players I played against, and just interacting with the fans. So it should be a great experience.
And let's just talk about this Ticats team. You know, we talked to Bralon Addison. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. You got Speedy B coming back. Like I said, you've played with great receivers before. How do you look at this team and compare it to maybe some of the teams that you played with great slot backs, great receivers? Like, how do you look at the two teams? Are there some comparables there?
Well, I think so. I mean, they have all the ingredients for a championship team. There's no doubt, and they've had great success over the years. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. But I think with a lot of teams, that's just a learning experience. You know, sometimes you got to get there first in order to experience it and go through it. And sometimes you need a little luck on your way. We had that on our side when we won the Grey Cup, even though I thought we had a pretty good team, but you certainly need that on your side as well. So I think they have all the ingredients. They just got to get through that regular season now and hopefully go into the playoffs healthy.
Rocky, always great to catch up to you again. I'm sure I'll see you at Food Basics or Giant Tiger before I see you at the field. So thanks for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Louis. Good seeing you, buddy.
Thank you, the listener, the viewer, however you're deciding to get this podcast into your ears. We appreciate it. We will be back with a new episode. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you stay locked in right here. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's been Louie B. This has been the 2021 season preview for the Hamilton Tiger Cats presented by TELUS. And again, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode.